Hey girls, welcome to the Asterisk Podcast. I'm your host, April Biondolillo. Hey girls, welcome back to the Asterisk Podcast, where I'm your host, April Biondolillo. And today on the show, we have a very exciting guest. Her name is Jordan. Jordan Krieger resides in Monroe, Washington with her husband, Seth, daughter, Ailey, who is 8 months old, and her two pups, Alkai and Frankie. They attend Cascade Community Church, and Jordan is currently working in HR. God bless you. I'm sure you deal with so many things there. She is a big soccer fan and enjoys creating handwritten signs, modern calligraphy. I tried to get into calligraphy and it just wasn't for me, but that's a different story. But Jordan, we are so excited to have you on the show today. I'm very excited for our conversation. So first off, thank you for being on the podcast today. And we're just going to dive right on in because we want to know who you are. So go ahead and tell us what your upbringing was like and when you started following Jesus.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, April. It's like such an awesome opportunity and an answer to prayer, really. So excited to share some of my story. I grew up in Snoqualmie, Washington, and when I was younger, we attended Lutheran church. My dad went to like Pacific Lutheran. His whole family is Lutheran, and we went with that. And kind of like the Catholic Church, it was a lot of like stand up, sit down, repeat after me. And so I kind of viewed that as like a relationship with God from a young age. I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I was like drawing and coloring in the pews while things were going on a lot, but that's kind of what I was raised with and how I viewed religion. And my neighbors were Christians, and my best friend and neighbor started asking me to come to youth group in church probably around middle school. And so through that connection, I gave my life to Christ probably, I think it was in 6th or 7th grade as like a personal choice. Even though I was like, I've always believed in God, but like it really wasn't a relationship. It was a lot of like just repeating words, like
going through the motions.
Do this, don't do this. So and then I like dove in pretty head first and like started doing some like leadership stuff as a middle schooler for our youth group. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, I love that. I think a lot of us have a similar, or like even for me, like growing up in the church, I loved going to church, but it didn't mean anything until started growing up and figuring out different things and making that personal relationship. So I think that's awesome that your friend reached out and started inviting you in. So you look back on your walk with the Lord, where did you specifically feel like you struggled with your worth as you were growing up? And is that still something that maybe you struggle with?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I played a lot of sports. So like I put a lot of my identity in soccer and basketball.
Yeah.
Like since I was 5 years old, I played sports, and even when I was a Christian, I feel like I did put a ton of my identity in that. Like if I played a good game, if I did well. And so I think that's where I struggled the most, kind of because I played all through college and a little bit after I played soccer. So that was definitely a struggle for me because I'm like a very competitive person, and that just like comes natural to me.
Absolutely.
And the way of Jesus is not natural for like humans, right? So I think that's definitely where I struggled the most, just like really defining myself through how well I did and excelled in sports. I also think as I got older, body image was huge. I mean, I'm pretty short and like kind of thick. So I even now have struggled with comparison, especially after having a baby. Like it's like surfacing again, and like loving my mom pooch has
real.
It is a real thing and has been like a new thing where I'm like going kind of like it takes me back to like the middle school days or the high school days where you're kind of struggling with that a little bit, and not playing as many sports, right? I've like that was my life, is working out and playing sports. And now that it's more of like not my priority. So yeah, those are the two main areas I think.
Oh, that's good.
I struggled with worth.
Yeah, and I think a lot of individuals would relate with that too, because especially in today's age with everything so centered around social media, it's constant comparison. And I mean, even like right now, like if I scroll through my own like TikTok account, which I need to get off TikTok, it's so terrible for myself, but
I'm not on it. It's good.
Yeah, no, seriously. They have like, I mean, right now it's all about just like the ASMR of like people eating food. It's like a god awful amount of food, and I'm like, why am I like so drawn into like watching this? But at the same time, I'm like, this is not good for me because now I'm gonna start craving this stuff. And then it's like always like the girls that are like super skinny eating all of this. I'm like, I just look at it and I'm gonna gain 20 pounds. So I don't. So there's just a lot of like unhealthy, habits that are surrounding us. And I think for this younger generation, it's so much harder because I didn't grow up even with social media the way it is. And so what you're talking about, yeah, definitely enhances a lot more if you see, even in like having a baby, seeing everybody's so different, can bounce back, and others like, here we are still struggling and figuring it out. So no, I think those are really, really great points of where we struggle with our worth. And really a big thing with this podcast is just bringing transparency that we're all dealing with it. We're all trying to figure it out. We're not alone in it. And there's a community of women that you can walk alongside in that struggle. But something I was particularly excited to have you on for the podcast for is a big portion of your own story. And that's what we want to do, is just create a space for your story to be heard. But you and your family went through a very difficult and traumatic experience in a time when your fiance passed away from an overdose. Big deal. And so thank you for being on here and being willing to share about it. And we just want to hear a little bit more about what that journey was like for you and how you leaned on God during such a difficult grieving season.
Yeah. I was telling you this earlier, but like, thank you for giving me a platform to share my story, because, I can be kind of shy. And I think some things that are like really hard in your life, sometimes you want to push down, but like Jesus takes us through those things to like share them and to bring them to the forefront so you can connect with other people and bring people to Jesus.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to share, but I'm so thankful that you asked me to. You just wanted me to kind of share what happened a little bit?
Yeah, give a little bit of what you feel comfortable with, framework of, the storyline.
Yeah, so when I met Austin, I knew that he had struggled with some addiction in the past, but he had gone to rehab and stuff, and it was probably 5 years later when we got together. And so it was one of those things that I'm like, I didn't know a ton about addiction, but I did know that it's not something that just ever goes away. It's something that you have to work at forever. So I was like, we're an open book. If you need to talk to me about anything, or if I need to like check in with you, like, let's be able to do that. But yeah, we honestly had such a beautiful relationship, and just like filled with so much joy and laughter. He and I both shared like a common ground of just being big kids. And so my family and I are really close, and he's really close with his family too. So kind of sharing that with our family, and his mom got diagnosed, and his mom is like his best friend and became one of my best friends. His mom got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And this was how many years into our relationship? I think 3. Okay. So we were engaged, and we found out about this diagnosis. And I think that he was in so much pain that he needed to find an escape. And I had thought, well, maybe this is a time where he would return to that. But whenever I would ask him, he would say like, no, I'm good. So one day I came home, and this is like very sped up version, but I found him on the ground, and he was not breathing. So I did CPR, and a bunch of paramedics and people came in, and he flatlined multiple times in the ambulance, was in the ICU for 3 or 4 days, in the hospital for almost a week. And like true miracles happened then. Like he was on a ventilator one day, I think on day 2 or 3, and then like the next day his nurse came back, like his night shift nurse came back, and they're like, we're taking him off the ventilator. And the nurse was like, what? I was just with him, and like he was not doing well. So like true miracles happened there, because he had already flatlined multiple times. His heart was not in a good place, and they pulled the ventilator out, and he was able to breathe on his own, and he survived that. And he said that he had an encounter with God, and it was like a really crazy experience, but obviously we were like so thankful. I did not know he was doing drugs, so there was a lot to happen after that, to kind of like, there was a social worker who got him signed up for rehab, and he agreed to do that and everything. So kind of a lot to start from, not knowing that this was an issue again, to jumping into that. Then when somebody goes through something like that, they have you make a bottom line. And I made a bottom line that like, hey, I have to call off the engagement if like you relapse, because this is something that like you need to do on your own. And that was really, really a hard choice for me to make, but just with like a lot of encouragement and research, that was the decision. And so he did end up relapsing. So we separated and called off the wedding. Even though everything in me just wanted to like stay with him and be with him, like he really needed to do it for himself. So that when we were living on our own, my number one fear was that same thing was going to happen again, but I wasn't going to be there. I went through a lot of therapy to kind of like get over that fear. And just as I was like, not get over it, I would say get through it, because you don't really get over things like that. But right when I was like starting to do a little bit better with it, that exact thing happened. And I hadn't heard from him for a while, so I called for a wellness check, and he had passed away. So obviously like super devastating, quick changes, but also like miracles from God, because in between that time where he almost passed away, and then from the time that he did, he like really took his relationship with Jesus more seriously and accepted Jesus into his heart. So, and he did that with his mom, which is really special. So, and then after, I think it was September, 8 months later, his mom did end up passing away from her battle with cancer. And after Austin passed, I was seeing her every other weekend because like we were his closest people and we really bonded. So I think kind of like feeling like I lost him, and then feeling like I lost like every part of like my family that I was just about to have was really really devastating. And like two of my closest friends, my first calls were gone. So it was really, really tough. I had lost a few people in my life, but nobody like that close to me. So that's just a bit of the story.
Short, condensed version, I'm sure. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine just the layers of grief, because like you said, these weren't just like acquaintances. Like these were your close people that you're already transitioning into family when you're engaged and in that process. And so people that you've been doing life with for so long. And I'm sure there's so many different directions that my mind even wants to take it, of just even feeling, did you ever wrestle with like guilt? Because you kind of talked about that too, of feeling like this needs to be something, for him to walk through. But I'm sure it would be so easy for the enemy to come and try to, twist that grief and make it on you. Was that ever something that you wrestled with?
Absolutely. And it's like still something that I question all the time. They ruled it an accidental overdose. But like part of me is like, was this something that he wanted to do? Also, like I literally talked to him 2 hours before he passed away. Like, and noticed some of the signs that I noticed before, but I asked him, and like, so totally have gone through a lot of feelings of guilt. And also I am a people pleaser, and what other people thought was really devastating to me too, because people are like, how did you not know this was going on? Or because like a lot of people are like, how would you not know that somebody's like doing this? Like, and we can get into it later, but it's like part of addiction to be really good at lying and a little bit manipulative. And that wasn't Austin, but that is a part of the addiction. So
no, it's really true.
Yeah. Or and people kind of like believing lies that they were told to kind of cover up maybe what the truth was that was going on. So a lot of people thought it was my fault, like kind of real, and people told me that. And so to not only be blaming myself, but have other people kind of say like, how did you not notice? This is something that you should have done more about, was really, really, really tough.
No, I mean, I believe that. I want to ask you some further questions into that, but I also want to speak to slightly just that I've seen it firsthand. Like I was talking to you earlier, working at the Mission, being the director there for a season of my life. Just I think I was only there for almost 2.5 years. But a lot of those stories like yours would come through, and I had to witness 3 people in our shelter passing from addiction. Theirs was due to alcohol, which is wild to me. Alcohol is like the number one, and I would have never, known that. And a lot of those stories, when you have to call family members or individuals, some wouldn't have even known that that's where their mom or their daughter was. And then just having them have to process through what that looks like. And then for the individuals staying with us, there really was this desire to fight and to change, but addiction is a strong weight, and it's very, very hard. And so there's just so many different perspectives that you see in it, and it really does break your heart. And so how did you, especially because I know what you're saying when you're talking about other people coming in and saying, how did you not see? How did you not know? Could you have done more? How did you, especially as a people pleaser, tune that out and focus your attention on the Lord and, focusing on what He says about you and the situation? Because I'm sure that there are other people listening that may be walking through something similar of, the word boundaries can be such a trigger sometimes for people, especially in the Christian walk. We think that as Christians, we're supposed to lay down our lives, for other people. Like we can't put up boundaries, but boundaries really are good. And they're really things that we put on ourselves. But I could see people wrestling with someone keeps doing this thing again and again. And I know I need to do this, but kind of feeling that weight of, but who's going to be there for them? That like savior mentality. Mm-hmm. So how did you, navigate through those words spoken around you and keeping your focus on the Lord?
Yeah. I mean, they were really hurtful. And to be honest, I know that I didn't do everything right in this situation or like navigate it as perfectly as I could.
Because you'd never been here before.
No, like absolutely not. Never been.
Situation.
Yeah. So I look back and there's things that I think I could have done differently, but I think just like constantly having conversations with God that were not always pretty conversations of like, God, I thought I was doing what you asked me to do. Like, why is this what's happening? Which is like tough because it's not God's fault. But I think just taking it to God and kind of coming to a place of like, I love you, daughter, and what you did is enough. And even if other people don't see it that way, like I know you and that's what matters. And like the people closest to you know, like how much you loved him and how much you did what you could do. But sometimes like loving someone looks differently from an outside perspective. Like I think the biggest act of love I did was leaving. Because it was literally the opposite of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But if he didn't choose to go through rehab and be like wanting to be healed, if he didn't make that choice for himself and he did it, let's say, just for me or just for his mom, like it was never going to happen.
Right.
So I think like the affirmation only needs to come from God and his word. Yeah. And if that's where you're getting your affirmation from, like you can stand firm on that. It took me a while because I wanted everybody to like me and like, absolutely. I mean, you're grieving like the biggest loss of your life. And then people think you're this horrible person at the same time. So, but I think that God was really trying to teach me that through this too. Like there's so many good things that came from it, but I think that this was one of the biggest things. And I have been different ever since then for like reasons that are hard, but also reasons that are good. And I think like standing firm on what God thinks of me has been transformational.
I think that's really good. Mm-hmm. I think too, because I look at it, it's like something I had to continuously tell myself when I was working at the shelter too, is we're here to empower the ladies, not enable them. Mm-hmm. And the world likes to enable, and it could come down to the simplest of choices. We'd have ladies that wouldn't want to check into the shelter because they weren't ready to give up their addiction, because to stay with us, you had to be sober. For a lot of different reasons, but also because we house children and that wasn't going to be a good setup. But even when they would come for like clothes or food, like sometimes we'd have to say no to that. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you give them everything that they're asking for? And it's because we didn't know what are they going to go do with those clothes? What are they going to go do with that food? What are they, trading it out for drugs? And so it stinks to think that way, because it's not withholding a love. It's actually offering the ultimate love. But sometimes love is harsh and it doesn't feel good, but that's what's needed for change to happen. You just look at the disciplinary process of a parent to a child, but again, when you really love someone, and this is like a fiance, a husband, a mother, a father, cousin, whoever, that's really challenging because it feels wrong. It goes against everything inside of you to say no, but you were being obedient. And I commend you for that, because I know that could not have been easy. And I love that you're even able to point out through, his story, just these miracles and these moments of coming to Jesus, because I'm sure that gives the peace, that's needed to cope. So kind of moving along from that moment, what steps did you take to start rebuilding your life after such a significant loss? And what did that process look like for you? Like you're mentioning, there's been a lot of change. You're stronger for it. What was that process like?
Yeah, I want to start with saying that, like, even if you don't feel it, like God is he's walking through the fire with you. And I remember in the beginning, my parents were pretty scared that like I was going to harm myself, because like my whole life that I thought was like coming to like this beautiful marriage, like had changed forever. And I would just for a whole day stare at a wall, like, and that's it, and like not eat. And so I think even through those days, like looking back, like just God kept telling me like 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. So like being in like such a low place, and still there, even when I was staring at a wall all day, like I thought that like life was pointless kind of at a moment, but I never thought about harming myself. So he really like carried me through that, even if my day was filled with staring at a wall. And then like as the days went for, maybe it was 10 days, like just, but in my head, it was just 1 day at a time. Right. So 10 days went through, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like wanting to work out. This is the like, or like I'm craving food. And then another 10 days went by, and like, I want to go be in nature. And well, it took me a long time to want to be around people.
Yeah.
Even my closest best friends, they kept trying to get me out to go do stuff, and I just like wasn't up for it. But then maybe the next 10 days, like I was able to like go out and hang out with other people. And eventually had to get back to work too. And so like I can't even really explain how God brought me through this, but I know that if I did not have Jesus, that I would be suicidal, stuck in depression. And there's just something that kept pulling me along. Like, and people are like, how are you doing this? How are you getting through? And I'm like, I actually don't know how to answer this, but just like the Holy Spirit is guiding me.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that I was doing. And
Right.
yeah, I just really felt like I was just held in his arms. And then eventually when I like got to a point going to therapy, and like talking about this with other people,
Right.
and having Angela, his mom, to kind of like walk through this with me and process it through when she has cancer herself and is dying, like, seems crazy, but it brought a ton of healing for both of us to have somebody who's like, this person was like the biggest part of our life here on earth. So, yeah, I would just say like slowly with like time. And like I said earlier, it's not something that you like get over, but it's something that you get through. So like, if you think of like, if there's like some obstacle and you like need to take a bridge over it, that's getting over something, but like actually like fighting through it. And it wasn't like every day was better and better. Some weeks were worse than others, but like when you actually fight through something that's really hard, when you get to the other side, it's like so much more like rewarding, and you've grown so much more.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
No, I love that. One step at a time, one day at a time. And the Lord, He's so good at like He cares for us. So it's not this rush process like, okay, move on, let's go. It's just walking with Him. And even like I think about the story of Peter walking on water. It says in scripture that Jesus made the disciples get into the boat. And He made them. Like sometimes like He knew that they were about to enter into a storm. Like He knew it was going to be difficult and challenging what was ahead of them, but yet He sent them. And sometimes we think all bad things are, from the enemy. And I know this is such a big topic of why would God allow bad things to good people and all of that. But what's so beautiful about it is just like we've been promised that in this world we're going to face trials. Like there's going to be hardships, but to not fear because He's overcome. And you're talking about this peace that you got to experience and see in Austin's life, even in the hardships of things. And even with Jesus, like He went up on a mountainside and He's praying while the disciples are out there struggling. And so sometimes when we're in the storm, like we're praying and praying like, God, just make it stop. Let the pain go away. Get it over with. I'm sure there was many, bold prayers to the Lord like that, tears and agony and frustration and questioning. And sometimes our energy needs to be put in, okay, what am I supposed to learn through this? Like, what's the impact? There's something on the other side of this. Which part of that is today getting, to share and encourage someone else that we don't even know that could be listening. But then there's other times where the storm gets so big that we feel like we can't see Jesus. Like, where is He in it? But Him on that mountainside, like geographically how it was set up, He could see the disciples out there struggling the whole time. And so we know that like Jesus is interceding on our behalf. Like he's praying for Jordan, like, God, give her peace, help her to know that I'm here with her. And you got to feel that. And that is such a weird thing to explain to people, because it's like, how could you experience anything other than anger or frustration or depression? Like you said, like if it weren't for Jesus, the suicidal thoughts or the self-harm or depression, so thank you for just your strength. That shows so much of you, of just pressing in and leaning on the Lord, because it would be so easy to turn away, and instead it brought you closer and made you stronger to Him. So what do you think are the most important ways friends and family can support someone grieving the loss of a loved one to addiction?
Yeah, these seem like really simple, but the first one I would say is like, say something, not nothing.
Mm.
Your words don't have to be this extravagant, like, note of like heartfelt love, which some people are really good with that. Like, that's a good gift for them. But I remember feeling really hurt by some of my friends who said nothing. And later on, I come to find out that like they didn't know what to say. They didn't want to make anything worse. But whether it's just like, I'm really sorry, I love you, like, just say anything, reach out. Or if you feel called to reach out to somebody that you're not even like that close to through a message, like, the worst thing, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, they look at it and it makes them upset or something. Like, just say something.
Say something, not nothing. I like that.
Is one, and that can go for anybody who's lost somebody. And the other things I would say is like, I was really annoyed with those friends who kept like asking me to go do stuff. But I'm very thankful for them looking back. And like their persistence, not necessarily like give people who are grieving their space. And like, if they say no, they mean no, but like, try again a few days later.
It's huge.
Because sometimes people need that hand, like, to be pulled out of that pit.
Absolutely.
And I think those would be my like two main ways. And then other than that, just like pray. Like, pray without ceasing, because like God hears those prayers. And to know, when I got like multiple messages was like, we're praying for you, like, that just meant everything to me, because like God has the power to bring me through this. And to like when people ask what they could do, I would just say pray. Like, even people who weren't Christians, and like, who knows what kind of difference that's going to make in their life too. So
I love that. And
let them know you're praying for them. I think if that's the thing that you're going to say, like, hey, love you, praying for you, that's super comforting.
I think something I always grew up with too is my dad, when he would speak at funerals, he'd always remind us of the fact that, you know, we're all going to leave the funeral or leave this hard moment. You know, maybe it's not a passing, but it's just going through a hard situation. We're going to walk away from it. But that person who's experiencing it firsthand, like, they're going to continue in that grieving. And so don't forget, you know, like, there's some things in life where it's just like, it's kind of like on cue to show up for. It's like, you show up for the funeral. But then like after that, what do you do? Like, how do you stay in touch? So I think it's awesome that you had those friends that were persistent, in the time annoying, but looking back, it's like, it's what you needed, you know? And so I think it's just a good reminder of just those, like you said, they're simple, but they can feel uncomfortable because you're just like afraid of doing or saying the wrong thing. But I love that. Just say something, not nothing.
Great. And if you are a believer, I would, and you don't know what to say, I think another way is just like sending scriptures that are like clearly, like, you're like, I don't know why this keeps coming to mind, but it is. Send it. Or like worship songs, whatever it is, like, send those.
That's huge. I love that. I love that. So what, kind of shifting gears a little bit, what misconceptions about addiction do you think are the most harmful, and how can we work to change those perceptions?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So I really have
there really are.
I really have to limit here.
Yeah.
One of them is that people who are addicts or who struggle with addiction, you should be able to tell, like, you should know. Just talking about this earlier, it's like, there are some people who are on the streets and like struggling, homeless, you know, very outward. It's something that you can tell. And then there's some people who are able to hold a job, who are very charming, who look great. And so I think that that's definitely a common misconception, that, you know, addicts are going to look a certain way, and then you can judge them like that certain way too. Like, in particular, Austin held a job, was doing pretty well, like was getting promotions was a very attractive man, like would be hard to know. So yeah, I think that that's definitely one misconception and something that people are like, wait, is this real? Because it didn't really look like it from the outwards. And I think that everybody has an addiction of
100%.
sorts.
Yep.
But some are just more apparent than others.
Yeah.
And there's like levels to that, right?
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, unfortunately, part of the disorder of addiction is that like people's brains become really like at all costs they're going to like guard that. So it's like manipulation, lies, whatever it takes. Right. And I think like separating the person and who they are from the addiction is something that's really healthy to do.
Wow. Yeah.
For somebody who is like really close to somebody who struggles with addiction. So it is a part of them, and it's not like it is they are making a choice, but there's literally like an imbalance in their brain. Yeah. So because it's really easy to just get mad and be like, just stop. That brings me to another misconception that it's like, just stop. People literally need to be in hospitals to get off drugs, because not everybody has experience seeing what it's like, but it's almost worse than what the actual drug does to them to be
1,000%,
to like wean off of it. I mean,
and dangerous that way, like
very dangerous. Yeah.
Just stopping could actually kill you.
Yes.
Like there is a process in that regard too, which is wild of what it does. So yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah. And addiction can look a lot of different ways too. Like maybe you're a binge. Let's just use drinking because it's something that people can really. Maybe you're a binge drinker and you have like you can't stop when you start, or maybe there's people who have some every single day, or maybe there's people who have like, there's just a variety of what it looks like. So it's not a one size fits all like your tweaker type of situation.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah. And so that being said, with like, it's really hard to quit and it like takes a lot, like people need to be medically guided through it, is that like, it is something that's always going to be a part of you, and like relapse is always possible. I think going into it and being like, okay, they're in rehab, it's all going to get better now is not very realistic. It happens, like, and God can do big things, but just, I think going into it with like knowing that is like a high likelihood is something that you can prepare for. And the last thing I would say is addiction is very common. It's overdose is actually the leading cause of death for people aged 18 to 45. Wow. And specifically fentanyl overdose, which means it's like laced, is 70% of those deaths. So it is super common. You may think that this person in your life who's struggling with it is the only one, or it like is something you need to keep hidden, but I guarantee you that there's someone you can reach out to that can relate, and that knows more about it than you do, that can help guide you. So those are a few misconceptions.
I know there's so many more too, but you hit at some really, really great points, that just the awareness to it and the educational piece. Again, I had no background in any of this, and then walking into the mission, it was just like a teaching playground for myself, just to learn of people and the brokenness. And it's not like someone wakes up and is like, hey, I want to make this choice. There's a lot of, just challenges that different people face. And I remember someone saying one time too, in the specific realm of like homelessness, of like, I don't really see a lot of homeless people, or, even a lot of people going through addiction here in the Tri-Cities. And I just like laughed to myself. I mean, I would have been the same person probably saying the same thing because I didn't know. But just to your point earlier, I mean, there was probably 6 of the women that went to the church I was attending that lived in the shelter, and no one would know. And why would they? Because They look like you and me. And it's like not even a they, it's just people. You know, everyone has their brokenness. And I think something I'm very passionate about too is that in the church, sometimes we get really good at masking that and hiding it. It's almost like, I think for my own life, it's where I learned to hide because there weren't enough people sharing and going first. And so that's why I love just being real and putting it out there and calling it for what it is. And so even working in that environment, just seeing how many people are just, even for me, I'd have to look for the signs and I would miss it all the time because everyone's signs are different. You know, everyone's tells are different, and be like, you're using the same drug, but it looks different on each person. And that makes it challenging. And so there is so many different misconceptions, but I think the greatest focus is just, you know, having something I pray every day is like, Holy Spirit, open up my eyes to see people, you know, help me to see what I'm naturally not going to see, and you are, and help me to be that light and that encouragement. So I think you pointed out some really great things. So we kind of want to wrap it up here. This has been really, really good. I love it. But what advice would you give to others who are dealing with the loss of a loved one to addiction?
Yeah. So my advice, I mean, my number one advice would be like, lean on Jesus. Like that would be my number one advice. Like it really is the reason why I am like, I am here today, like where I'm at with in a marriage with a man who loves Jesus and a baby and like, you know, and so that would be my number one advice is just like go it all in on Jesus because he's never going to let you down and he's never going to fail. Even if you think so sometimes, like it's crazy to look back and see like how this story has really shaped and formed me and drawn me closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
And another like other advice that I would give, if you are like navigating new relationships and it's really hard, I would say be open and talk to them. Like tell them like your story, talk to them about the person that you were with. Because I think if you try to hide those things, it's just going to come back to like intrude in your relationship. I mean, and that looks different for everybody, like what boundaries work and don't. But talk about the person like they're still here. And let's see, other advice that I would give is educate yourself and like do something with that. I think that's something that gives me like a deep purpose is I've learned a lot. The first time he was saved by Narcan. So there's a lot of like education that I've been able to go with that. And like people reach out to me and ask me like, how can I get Narcan? Like, how does it work? I've taken some like educational courses on it just because even when we were talking about misconceptions, I was thinking about how like the older generation in the church kind of like has these misconceptions about drugs because it was so much different back in the day. Like
absolutely,
it's so available and it's like fentanyl especially is so deadly. Like everywhere. A small salt grain can kill somebody. So like educate yourself and do something about it and use the story as like a way to like love on people, reach people, educate people about what's going on because like God didn't guide you through this for no reason.
No, that's great. And that's something we can also link here is resources where you can get access to free Narcan because I know there's 2 different ways of administering it, and it is good to go through a course and train yourself on that because, to your point, it is surrounded everywhere. You know, I have one that I just carry around with me because you just really don't know, but you want to get comfortable with administering that or knowing how because it can be overwhelming, you know. yeah, it is sad, just the mix of drugs and what's available. But again, it's like, to put it simply, it's like we're in a spiritual battle, and the enemy came to literally kill, steal, and destroy. And he wants to get that out there as fast as possible. And so we as Christians have to, combat that with being prepared. I love the educational piece. It's how we find that empowerment to go out and do what God's called us to do. And you might be listening like, I don't know any of this, or this is overwhelming, and where do I start? And it's just start, asking those around you, getting connected to those places. Maybe it's even listening to this episode today and hearing Jordan's story, and, find a local mission, or, rehab facilitation, or finding out ways that you can volunteer and serve. And I would just encourage you, just learn people, get in front of people. And there's a type of people groups that, if we're honest with ourselves, can be intimidating of, what do I say? How do I start? But I have found people are people, and they just want someone that they can be real with. And I think just making eye contact and getting on the same level and doing life with them is amazing. And it's just broken people that need someone to change the model. I mean, there's so many people that I would meet at the shelter that I don't think they've ever heard their name be said out loud in such a long time, or just hugged because of the smell or the lifestyle or wanting to get away. So just like those simplicity things of, find somewhere to serve, ask people their stories, get to know, don't judge a person before you know where they came from. But Jordan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. This was an incredible episode and very eye-opening, I know, for me and so many others, and just the impact of your wisdom and vulnerability. I'm excited to hear how girls respond to this. And if you like today's episode, I encourage you to make sure you're following along. We are in season 2, which is exciting, but also share on your socials so that it can reach every girl everywhere. That's our mission and vision, is that we want to make an impact for every girl everywhere and sharing our stories. So girls, thank you for being here, and we will see you guys again soon.